In today's show of the Path Monk Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest with me here today. I'm with Paul Carpinella, who is heading over from Vizit. And Vizit is the world's first visual intelligence company. What is super interesting is there's a lot of things that you might think that are in that word of visual intelligence. So Paul is going to break it down to help us learn what this is all about, who's benefiting, and we wouldn't be the Path Presents podcast if we wouldn't be talking about websites and digital growth. So Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So yeah, a bit about Vizit. So we actually just launched our SaaS-based product in January. Prior to that, we were more services-based. And what Vizit does is through our SaaS-based platform, we help brands, specifically their marketing, e-commerce, and innovation teams, create the best imagery that will entice a conversion along every visual touch point, from packaging, social media posts, website copy, and your Amazon or other .com product detail pages. We do this by creating what we call audience lenses. So we work with our customers to understand what are the specific customer segments that they're looking to attract with this piece of visual content. And then do a process of really living or visiting where these customer segments are living online to understand what are the visual patterns or what are the visual triggers that are getting likes, or getting clicks and getting views, and then using our AI to basically create a lookalike audience. And then, basically looking at the images that these brands are producing and providing a score to give the brands an indication of how likely that given audience segment will convert or react positively to the images that they're being displayed in front of them.
Okay, super interesting. Could you give us, make it a bit more tangible for people to understand? Like, what is it like? What happens with those pictures, and how do we use them in order to drive conversions, as you were saying?
Yeah, so there are a few spots you could use them. So certainly, if you think about a brand perspective from the FMCG perspective, a lot of our customers are then, basically their e-commerce teams are testing, learning, or testing on the images they either have within their own digital asset management systems or their PIM systems to find the most effective imagery against that target audience. And then they're putting that onto their product detail pages. And what those are able to do is they're getting quicker responses or quicker views and clicks from those search result pages. And then, so that's basically the acquisition part. And then the conversion part by, that click through, having some really impactful imagery that will convince the shopper that this is the product to buy and add it to the cart. So that's a specific example there. From a packaging perspective, it's really along the same concept, same with marketing as well. Really gives brands real-time understanding and predictions of how impactful their imagery will be on their websites to catch the eye the first time they acquire them, and then to kind of bring them down that conversion funnel.
Super interesting. Okay, I think our listeners have a good understanding of what this is all about. Who would you say is typically the champion within a company to bring in Vizit? Is that like does it come from the design angle? Does it come from the marketing angle? Like where does it come from?
There's a few specific use cases that we're seeing in our early customers. Predominantly, they're from two areas within the insights and innovation team. So really, the teams are really looking to do real-time, more rapid test and learn at lower cost and really with more capabilities. And then the secondary audience is that e-commerce team. So the team that is responsible to flight the imagery on the digital shelf, whether it's on the product detail pages or their retail media ads. Certainly there has been some application within the marketing areas of companies as well. Again, really around what are the best images for social media posts and advertisements and things of that nature.
I see. Super interesting. So now you, as a head of demand generation, I would be very curious to figure out and learn for the audience, what is really the path that somebody's going through in order to get started with Vizit, right? I mean, what is the journey that somebody goes to? What is the acquisition channels that you're really focusing on?
Yeah, we're still trying to understand that journey as well. Just kind of sort of coming up here, but we take a very integrated kind of approach. We're disruptive technology. So I think a lot of brands understand that they need to be better or need to have better images on their digital shelf and their packaging, but they don't quite necessarily know how to start. And we're literally coming in new to the market. So really what we're focused on is a lot of attention and awareness building. There's a lot of trade associations here domestically in the U.S. And certainly as we move international, they're very focused on e-commerce and innovation. So we've been working very closely with those groups from a webinar, webcast perspective. Also very focused on thought leadership. So utilizing our blog and LinkedIn to help basically attract the customer and bring it in. It's an enterprise level sale of a disruptive technology. So it's not necessarily a fill out an ad and you're buying right away. It's a multi-touch and a multi-pronged approach, which requires that multi-channel.
Yeah, our listeners always reach out to us and they ask, because they always like to see like the breakdown of outbound to inbound. Would you, could you give us a rough, because, it's always super interesting to understand how companies actually, could you give us an idea, like outbound, inbound, like what is the rough split?
Yeah, so I think we're a bit more 50-50 outbound to inbound here. I think what we're noticing is because it's more of a disruptive technology and longer buying cycle that as we go into Q2 and Q3 and Q4 will probably go more to, probably 65-70% of the more kind of inbound, more the thought leadership content in order to give our sales team more ammunition and more importantly, more awareness before they're going into these groups as well. So I think that's definitely the area we're trying to get into. It's, e-commerce is hot right now and retail is hot right now. So they're getting bombarded from tons of different angles. So, what's important to us is that we're differentiating ourselves to the marketplace and really establishing ourselves as leaders through the thought leadership and insights work.
Very, very cool. I always love to ask the people that we have on the show about the actual role that they attribute to the website. It's the Pathman Presents podcast. Websites play a big role in these episodes. What role do you attribute to the website, for Vizit at the moment?
At the moment, it's growing. We've actually been, certainly as we're starting to, do more thought leadership and digital activities, we're getting a lot more traffic in. And those leads are converting, and they're probably converting into meetings at a clip about 80%. And even, a high conversion rate as we're talking meeting to opportunity. To me, I've always sort of learned that your website is literally your storefront, no matter what you're doing from a B2B perspective. And I actually once had a boss as I was starting in the SaaS space. He'd been in the SaaS environment, software as a service environment, for pretty much since SaaS started here in Boston. And he used to always say, the website is the most important channel that we have. It is that channel where you need to bring them in to educate. Basically you're using email, you're using digital media as the appetizer in order to get them to come into the restaurant. And then your website are the main courses to really get them to want to sit down and talk. And then, basically your sales team is that dessert, that appetizer to want them to keep them to stay. And you'll have that, cheesecake or, martini afterwards and then come back being the sale.
Very good. You mentioned conversion as a strength of the website. Where do you see room for improvement? Like, where do you see the page developing towards to?
Yeah, I think we're certainly seeing a tightening in terms of the way we're messaging to our core audience. As we were coming in here, we did have, that 80% is based on the target persona conversion rate. So when we're getting those folks, they're doing that. I think the tightening we're really looking to do is be more persona specific as you're getting to the website. So specific solution pages for each of our persona sets, specific content types for each of our persona sets to basically go from Vizit website 1.0, which was getting it on the shelf, so to speak, or getting the storefront up to 2.0 to getting it more personalized and customized, really more and really to kind of better address the customer journey and the customer pain points there.
Very cool. Super, super interesting. A very interesting development that you guys are following. I would love to pick your brain a little bit, right? Maybe moving a little bit away specifically from, what is you're doing at the moment with Vizit, more your overall perspective, right, on demand generation. Like what do you find to be at the moment to be the biggest challenge when it comes to bringing in innovation into demand generation?
That's a great question. I think, especially from smaller companies, focus I think is something that and prioritization I think are some of the challenges there, because it's marketing. It's very, I mean, it is basically Las Vegas bright light. Excuse me, Las Vegas bright lights. So everyone, certainly everyone has their ideas on what to do. So it's always tough to kind of understand where there's that gentle balance between listening to ideas and activating them. I think that's one piece. And I think being as specific and relevant to the end customer is also certainly a challenge out there. So it's really understanding how do you start from phase one of getting on the digital channel and boosting awareness, and then how do you quickly move to more innovation and being more personalized and customized as you get to phase two. So I think that's certainly some of the struggle. And the other piece as well is, we're certainly looking at situations where trying to do a lot more on LinkedIn, paid and organic, potentially looking more on the digital or the display advertising front. And, those can get really expensive really quickly. And now you have also a lot of the cooking issues, which could make them a lot less effective really quickly. So, it's also kind of understanding how to strike that balance between the broad-based digital approach, having those billboards on the highway, and the late relationship building approaches, which could speaking opportunities at major shows, being at these major shows, which are equally expensive, but certainly are give you an opportunity to put those dollars where they're going to be most effective.
Yeah, so super interesting. You brought up sort of obviously display retargeting. Like how do you approach tracking on the website at the moment? What is your approach there? And maybe you can give an insight to other marketers out there. Like what's your approach to understand what people are actually doing and where they're coming from and what they're doing then?
I've had to learn tracking the hard way. I've been doing this since the dawn of digital marketing. So really started my career back in 2002, really going from, tracking these things on a spreadsheet and preparing for board meetings, taking weeks upon weeks to correlate spreadsheets and marketing automation reports and Salesforce reports and things like that. I am, because of that, and because I've been beat up a lot, having to defend tactics to managers, to the C-suite and to the boards, I've been, I'm a stickler for attribution, and I've had some amazing help with that through some Boston-based companies that really help us put me on the right analytical path. But everything that we do, there's a tracking link associated with it. So whether it's creating a custom redirect link within our marketing automation system or those physical pages, as soon as there is a conversion activity, we're tracking that right back into our CRM. So we have campaigns set up. So if I'm coming in from a specific LinkedIn ad, there's UTM parameters set up and listening campaigns set up within marketing automation to update specific tracking fields or attribution fields that send these folks in the specific Salesforce tracking campaigns, and then being able to report that out. So we're tracking not only where was the first spot that we acquired these folks, but also what is each relative touch afterwards, and then kind of going back. And obviously we're a bit newer, but certainly going back and those the reports understand where is it where we're getting the most bang for our buck, where are we getting the most engagement, where are we getting the most form fills, but not necessarily the most pipeline traffic. And is that the right strategy depending on the channel? Because if it's not getting us a lot of pipeline, but influencing 80 to 90% of the accounts that we have in the pipeline to increase velocity down the road, then we're in the right spot. I think one thing in analysis that that I've done in the past is, within this market, it's taken somewhere between 10 to 15 touches from a marketing standpoint just to get these folks into meetings with our sales rep. And then for meetings opportunity, it's still taking another 5 to 10. And down the wind is getting up to somewhere around 20 marketing successes. So I think it's just important to be able to tell that story and to justify it a bit, because I think marketing, I think, always has to beat the drum for us. I think you can't necessarily sit in the back room and leave it all to sales. But because of that, there's often a lot of spend, whether it's people, whether it's programs and channels that you have to defend. You can't necessarily say, I know it works because we got this big blue chip customer. We got this big blue chip customer. That was the only blue chip customer we got. But take a look at the impact that this had on this blue chip customer. And by the way, because they saw this webinar, they thought, oh, I might be able to do this. And then we use that template to get them to present, because we literally said, here is your, not in all of our webinars are customized, but here's the template to set up your presentation to make it as easy as possible. But it's all about, the folks that helped me were all about listening campaigns in your marketing automation system. So that is key there. And the other part is find the right consultant to make sure you're getting up in the right spots as well. Because I think, I've had some great experiences with consultants who, yes, showed us their Bible of how to do it, but they also listened to, here's the way you Paul, work, and here's how you will understand it, and here's how we'll hold your hand, but here's how you'll do this to make results. And I've also had the situations where this is the playbook we use. I don't care how you work, and I don't care, how you're best able to kind of move that forward. And I think that's very important as you're onboarding consultants for these two, because it's really simple if you know what you're doing. I've literally been able to say Vizit probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting fees, because I now have that knowledge. And when we had to bring in some folks, kind of understood, here are the specific things I need you to do to kind of get them up and running a bit more.
And if you would have a magic stick, like what is the one thing that you still find a little bit, too difficult to track, or what is something that you would be able to track but can't at the moment?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's so difficult to track is, it's digital marketing, I think, is all about being in the right place at the right time. So there's so many, like there's 4 or 5 situations that came up this week where there was some web engagement. There were folks that filled out forms, and I sent them one-off emails. And, even though I know there's automation ways to catch that, there's often that's the automation that gets forgotten. And, literally I was in there manually updating this information. Salesforce, I get that in that campaign to document that. So I think that's where it becomes difficult, especially where if it's sales doing it one-off, sometimes that's where you get into situations where it's kind of tougher to justify. My favorite example of this is with one of my companies. There was a demo request that came in from a major brand, and that demo request ended up being a 6-figure initial contract, and it's still kind of going on very well for the company. But we were so proud as a marketing team to say, oh, we brought in that 6-figure revenue, and they were, you didn't do it. You did nothing of this. With that demo request came because the counterparts in the U.S. talked about them, and then we took it, and like, well, and it's how do you fight the battle of, yeah, but they had to do the demo request in order to get you to talk to them versus the, so it's I've learned over the years to sometimes just say, you're right, like you did you're right, and at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, which Q1, everyone's always in the same team. Q2, 3, 4, it's a little bit less of the same team. I think it's human. I mean, my wife will probably tell me day 1 of marriage, we're on the same team, and as we've gone through, but I think it's human nature. So I think those are some of the things. And sometimes, and it's all about relationships too. Like there's other situations where, maybe marketing, it hasn't necessarily had as big of an impact on getting that 6-figure deal in other cases. And it might be like, geez, Paul, like you knew this person, you sent a quick email, he didn't respond, but 4 months later, I was able to get this person on a meeting. Like, sometimes, so I think it's all a bit of give and take. End of the day, as marketers, I always tell people, especially in demand generation, we're either loved or hated depending on the function and on the day. So it's, I have to take your lumps. And most importantly, we're not the all-stars. We're the ones who, from American perspective, we're the ones who are trying to get on base from a baseball perspective, or we're that midfielder who is trying to basically play defense and offense at the same time, protect the middle to, get it off the offense if it's in the defensive zone and vice versa. So, that's a role we have to play. We don't need to be all-stars. We need to be good and help our teams, be efficient.
Very cool. Since we're slowly coming to an end of the interview, I would love to jump into our rapid fire questions.
Ooh,
are you ready
sure.
for this?
Oh, sure.
Very good. What's the last book you read?
Last book, The Consequential Leader. Don't ask me the author because I can't remember, but that was the last book. I
won't. People can look it up. What is the one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Pipeline building.
Mm-hmm. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you would want to have fixed for your role today?
Better digital advertising, or more precise digital advertising.
What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
My board presentation, which is which is coming up next week.
Good luck. We're all pressing thumbs. And the very last question would actually be, if today would be your very first day, you taking on your first marketing position, or sorry, for that matter, demand generation position, what would be the one advice that you would give yourself?
Listen, just sit back and listen, soak it all in, and know when to speak, and take those learnings and know when to speak.
Paul, we appreciate you took the time with us today to, share us the insights about Vizit. So I'm going to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Vizit, what's the one thing that they should remember?
From Vizit, I think the one thing they remember is that we're going to help you create closer connections with your end consumers and really help you, create that one-to-one relationship that is possible with the right imagery.
Thanks a lot for being part of Platinum Presents today.
Thank you.